I'm Tony and I'm the Bored Housewife. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you haven't done so already, please share, like, and subscribe to this video. Today we have another wedding related video, and today's topic is about everything that went wrong. So if everything has gone as planned, yesterday you heard about everything that went right, and before that you heard a couple of things that went wrong as far as the big things, but there were a nice amount of small things that just added up. So if you see me looking over there, it's just because a list, just to keep me on topic, is over there, but there is no ranking as far as these things that happened. Just I made a list off the top of my head of everything that I can remember that went wrong that day. So as you guys know, I planned my own wedding, and I don't know if that directly affected these things being wrong. I'm pretty sure they would have went wrong regardless of who was planning it. But let's just jump right into it. So the first things that went wrong was, as I mentioned in the other videos, I had several people in the wedding party on my side drop out of the wedding. First was my first bridesmaid, then a second bridesmaid, then my maid of honor. And they all had their own individual reasons, but it seems like in my life, that just seems to happen. Like, people always think that they make a decision independently and that it's not gonna have that big of an outcome because they're just one person. But when everybody has the same mindset, then it becomes a whole situation where everybody drops out and then you're left looking like, how did this happen? But that's something that went wrong. Something that went wrong and then right was our caterers. We actually decided to go with the caterers in town in Bloomington, and I'm not gonna name them just because there was some negative stuff, and I don't want the negative to outshine the positive, and then there be any flack towards them because of that, or somebody chooses not to use them because of something that I said. But with this particular place, we're gonna call, I don't know, let's call it Mr. and Mrs. Okay, so at Mr. and Mrs. we decided to go with this catering, and we met with them. We had a tasting, we picked the food, everything was done very early on. I would say probably more than 9 months ahead of time. So knowing that, I didn't really have any stress about it, but around 6 months before the wedding, I started to feel like they should be reaching out. They haven't sent me an itemized bill, because I need to start paying on this, because everything had to be paid on kind of a payment plan because we were handling it all our own. So when Mr. and Mrs. didn't contact me, I contacted them, and we kind of got the runaround. And it was just one of those situations where there were things that were happening on the other end that was affecting us, and since there was poor communication and then these things kept happening, it became an issue. So one thing that happened was we contacted Mr. and Mrs. and we were just like, hey, can we get an itemized bill? And then they sent it over. Then something was wrong on the bill, so we sent it back over asking questions. It took some time to get that all straightened out, but that was all straightened out. And then we were supposed to have a meeting. The day of the meeting, a scheduled meeting. We're supposed to have a meeting. I go up there, and that person no longer works for the company. And it's just like, okay, that's one of those things that neither the company nor I could foresee. So it's just like, okay, well, I took this time off work to, come to this meeting, so I kind of need to have this meeting type of deal, because it was actually a meeting regarding the alcohol at the wedding. So we had to get they had their own licenses, but we had to have insurance and stuff like that, and we were getting to pick our alcohol and then deciding if it was going to be an open or cash bar, stuff like that. Kind of important. And so, like I said, this is still months ahead. At this point, we're about 4 months. And so then they're like, okay, well, we'll let you talk to the catering people, but the people who you were supposed to talk to, the people who are in charge of yours, don't work here no more, so you're going to be switching over to these people. And so then we made an appointment with these people, and then the day of, I think I called, or they called me, and it was just like, that person called off today because they were sick. And so, of course, this makes me think about the first event, and it's like, okay, but once again, I've taken off for this, and because I worked Monday through Friday, strictly business business hours. So usually if something needs to be done for the wedding at that time, I would take off work or have a half a day of work to be able to go do these things. I could not just, wait till my next off day to go, because my next off day would be a Saturday and Sunday and I couldn't do anything on those days. So, I'm doing all this emailing. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I am able to not only juggle a full-time job and a home life, but also plan this wedding. And then, a person is calling off sick. And I get it. People get sick, but it's now becoming a pattern. And so then that became an issue, which I told my husband. And my husband, he's who I bring in to a situation where I can't handle it. Where me handling it would be worse than him handling it, one. And two, I'm at the point where I don't think I can be as professional as I can be, if that makes sense. So I bring him in, and he kind of the one who puts down the hammer, but in a very professional way. Like, he can talk to somebody and let them know what's what without it becoming emotional. I'll just say it that way. So at this point, I'm upset because I'm just like, I can't keep calling off for this stuff and then not actually getting anything done. It's getting ridiculous. I don't feel like I have anything together pertaining this particular thing with Mr. and Mrs. And so my husband gets involved. He tries contacting them. He doesn't get an answer. He emails somebody from the company, but higher up, and then we immediately get contacted. So I guess, he contacted the right people, because then they reached right out to us and was like, we can have a meeting together, blah, blah, blah. And so we have a meeting, and now it's me and my husband at Mr. and Mrs. And the whole attitude's changed. It's like, okay, so the first person who was handling got fired. The second person who was handling it quit, then came back, and then got sick. Which that person is our designated point of contact for our wedding. So that's kind of the issue, And so we go back and forth, and it's like, well, so far we've been disappointed. Like, you're a big company, and we want to know that, like, what happens if you're sick on the day of, or somebody quits, or somebody gets fired. Like, this is getting to be too much, all within a 9-month time frame. Like, this is too much drama for one company, pretty much. And so the woman who took over, she was just like, you know what, I completely understand, and if there's anything that you really want, like flowers or whatever, we'll take care of it for you. But we had already gotten all that taken care of at this point. Like, we're we were like 3 or 4 months. I would say 3 or 4 months before the wedding. So all that stuff is taken care of. So me and my husband, we decided on something that is kind of our guilty pleasure, which is cheese. And I know how that sounds, but we asked, because this place, Mr. and Mrs., was a company that specialized in delicacies and very high-end grocery type deal. And it's kind of hard to explain, because they also had a restaurant attached, and hopefully I'm not giving away too much information. But with Mr. and Mrs., we chose that restaurant because of their reputation and their event planning / wedding. So when she said that, we decided we wanted an assortment of cheeses, and we're talking about gourmet cheeses. And so we were sent over to the cheese department and to taste all these different cheeses that we wanted. So we made a list of cheeses that we wanted, and they also gave us like little crackers and olives and stuff like that before the wedding. So to make kind of a platter for the wedding, and that was how they made up for it. And then the woman who was now the boss of the man who's always having us issue, my husband was pretty much done with him. He was like, can we have somebody else? And they were just like, well, he's the only one he can be, but I promise you, he will be there. He will be on time. He will be great. And honestly, he was. He was on time. He was there as much as he was supposed to. He oversaw the bartender, because we got a bartender through them, and he made sure we had the alcohol we wanted, and he made sure to just check in with us during the wedding, and we got our cheese. Like, that's what we wanted. It ended up being a tray of personal cheese for us and not for the wedding guests, but it was really nice of them to throw that in as an apology, and it was all wonderful. Everything turned out really well. So that was all taken care of and paid for. If you saw the other video, you know I've had quite a bit of drama with the photographer, but that wasn't the only drama. Actually, that photographer, I don't know, let's call her Kelly. Kelly did not want to stay for the entire wedding. We had to discuss it beforehand, you know, to get a clear view of, you know, what time you're going to be there, what time you're staying until, and stuff like that. I had also paid for travel. And so paying for travel plus paying for the set rate for the wedding. My wedding started at 4 and then was going to be over at 10. And I wanted her there to, you know, take pictures while I was getting ready. So I asked her to be there at 2 to 10. So that's 8 hours, and you're getting, you know, several hundred that day. So for that, you know. And she argued about it and was like, you know, I was thinking it meant more like I would be there until 7 or 8. And it's like, well, then you would miss the final dance, you know, people probably dancing, you know, the getaway, stuff like that. And I just didn't want that. Plus I looked it up, and typically if you pay for a photographer stays for the whole wedding, and that's just it. That's just the way it is. So we talked about it a couple different times, and eventually she was like, okay, I'll be there. You know, she couldn't really say I don't want to do this, but the wedding ended up ending early anyway. We ended it around 9 o'clock or 8:30, 9 o'clock instead of 10 anyway, because, and I'll get to it in a second. Let's see. Half of the people didn't show up, and that's another reason why we ended it early. We planned for a relatively small wedding where we only invited close friends and family, with the thought process that if we only are inviting close family and friends, then we don't have to worry about people flaking out and not being there, because these are close family friends or family and friends, you know. So it was like, these people will be there. They won't miss this day. They won't miss this day for me. They won't miss this day for him. And they will want to be there. And so we had a couple of events where, you know, mostly me, because I don't know how to say it without it coming off bad, but I don't have dependable people in my life. Like, I don't have, you know, family that'll ride or die and show up for everything, and I also don't have friends that way either. So between those two situations, it was always me who seemed like I was pulling, you know, up short when it came to producing people who cared about me. Oh God, that sounds sad, but I guess the truth is the truth, and you guys aren't gonna judge me, okay? Don't judge me. Anyway, some other things that happen where, like, people, I just don't understand. Like, you send out save the dates, and I'm pretty sure that the reason for save the date is so you can save the freaking date. Like, that's it. Like, that's the point of it. You don't wait until the time where the wedding is coming up and it's like, oh no, I can't get off from work. Oh no, I have to move today. And it's like, no, that's what the save the date is for. It's so that you make plans, that you go the next year and know that in like 6 months you're going to this thing, and that you can let employers know, you can let, you know, family members know, you can let whoever needs to know, so that you can go. So we had people who had to work, people who were moving that day, people who had other obligations to go to. So people didn't show up. And then there are other people who just didn't show up and didn't give me a reason. I don't really feel like those people deserve my time right now. So anyway, another thing is, two of my close friends from high school and into the beginning of college, I really love these girls. They mean so much to me, and I invited them. They actually live in Louisiana, and I invited them to come, and they were on their way. They actually flew in, but I guess missed the train. They needed to take a flight to Chicago, then take a train from Chicago to Bloomington, Illinois, where my wedding was. Unfortunately, they missed the train, and they let me know, and I was very sad that they weren't able to make it, but they did send the gift, and I truly appreciate that. So that was another thing that just went, you know, wrong, but stuff happens. So by no means am I saying if you weren't there, I cut you out of my life, because I understand things happen, but certain things that some people came up with, like reasons, is like you either didn't care to plan, you did poor planning, or you just don't care about me, and that's all there is to it. Another thing that happened was our officiant. Our first officiant, we absolutely loved her. We interviewed her. We felt an immediate connection to her, and she is a non-religious officiant, and she was going to be officiating our wedding. And unfortunately, she became sick. Not just a regular sickness, but a disease, an illness that kept her from being able to perform any of her officiant duties going forward. So she told us months ahead of time. I want to say around May, and my wedding was in September. So she told us around that time that she was not going to be able to do it because she had to focus on getting well herself, which we completely understood. But that was just one of those things where you plan something and you think it's all said and done, and then a monkey wrench gets thrown into it. So unfortunately, that was another thing. If you saw the other video, you know that one of my bridesmaids who made it all the way up into the wedding day decided not to show up because she had an attitude. That was another thing that went wrong. My mother and my fiance actually got into it the day we went dress shopping. My husband actually just was there to pick up my father and my brother to actually go take them to the tux renting place, like to get sized and all that stuff. So he was just there to take them, but we were all together till the point of the parking lot right before we went into the dress shop. See, the day of, we started at like, I don't know, somewhere between I think 9 and 11. I think it was more like 11, and we went to the very first shop, which was a boutique, to go look at dresses, and then we had an appointment at another place. So the boutique place was the very first time I ever tried on a dress at all, period. And so you kind of think that was one of those things where your mother should be there, but my mother was not there. She was running several hours late, and I don't know the situation, but she was late. I was trying to contact her. She eventually contacted me saying, when she was close by, but by then I had already tried on dresses, and we were about to go to the second place. So we all decided to meet at the second place. My husband was very upset because he only came to drop me off to be able to pick up the guys to take them to this appointment at the tux renting place. So because of that, they were late to their appointment at the tux renting place. Plus, nevertheless, they got into it. Like, she had made a comment about it took me too long to get from the first dress place to the second dress place, and that took about 15 minutes, and she didn't like that. And he was livid because he had been there for like 2 hours, and he hadn't seen any of the dresses. He was just hanging out in the car waiting, and so I feel so bad for him. But he was not happy with that, and so that put tension on the day that's supposed to be pleasant. I'm trying to pick out a dress here, so that was stressful, and I was not happy with either one of them that day. There wasn't like a full-on argument or anything. They just said words and then went their own separate ways. It lasted all of like 30 seconds, but still, it was not something I wanted to deal with on that day. So then, at the time, I was with my maid of honor, or matron of honor. She came in, she tried different dresses. My mother did not want to wear a dress, and I mentioned that in everything that went right. She did actually wear a dress to the wedding, but she fought me that day, and I don't know if she was just frustrated at my fiance and taking it out on me, or what the situation, but she argued with me and told me she wasn't going to dress like an old lady, and I never asked her to dress like an old lady, but I just asked her to wear a dress, and maybe she put it hand in hand, mother of the bride, old lady. I don't know. I don't, but she looks beautiful, and I'm glad. But that was another thing that didn't go right at that time, because she full on argued with me, I'm not wearing a dress. And it was like, like, this is a wedding. Like, we're going to a wedding. You're going to my wedding. You're the mother of the bride. You're wearing a dress. And she's just like, no. So she wore a dress. I appreciate it. If you're watching, I appreciate it. Thank you. You looked lovely. So yeah. Another thing that happened, like I've told you guys, like it's very hard for me to feel like I have people who will always be there for me and be at my things. And a huge thing happened within my family, and Arvin's family around the time. There was a death in the family, a sudden death, and no one from his side of the family who was planning to attend my bridal shower was able to come. So that dropped the numbers dramatically. Plus, people from my side of the family who did not give me a reason for not being there just decided not to come. So once again, we dropped. So when it comes to all being there for me, I had like, I'd say six people there, and my my mother, my stepmother, I guess I could call her, my stepmother, who's married to my biological father. She is the one who put the party together, and I really appreciated her for doing that. But she bought all these decorations, you know, got food, rented out this like banquet room in a hotel, and I'm sure it really let her down to know that so many people didn't come. And if I would have known so many people didn't come, I would have been able to invite other people who would have been there, who were thinking about coming but were unable to come. So mix that in with no bachelorette party because I didn't have anybody, and you're left with all the things that went wrong. So that's all the things that went wrong, guys. But I got married, and I guess that's the end goal. So keep tuned to all the next videos that are coming out wedding related this week, and love you guys. Bye.